Good evening, everyone. Today is January 17th, 2012. Welcome to the Norfolk City Council meeting. I will call this meeting to order, and I need to inform you that this is an open meeting with posting in the northwest corner of the actual Open Meeting Act made accessible to all members for public viewing. Please, if you will, rise with us. Join us in a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll go forward with roll call.
Coy.
Here.
Lange.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Fossen.
Here.
Buren.
Here.
Brenneman.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
Saunders.
Here. All right. Action. First request here is approval of the consent agenda as was presented to you in your packet.
So move, Your Honor. Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
As well, a full agenda presented to you in your packet. Again, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second for approval of the full agenda. Again, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay. First, under presentations tonight, we'll look for a recreation update. It seems kind of strange that we can be talking about it here in January, but go forward.
We're continuing to move forward.
Pardon me?
I said we're continuing to move forward.
Good.
I think since the last time we met, they poured the last of the pool floors. They had to pour, I guess, the week between Christmas and Thanksgiving, that nice weather in there. They're continuing to work on the multi-purpose building. They have the east wing of it enclosed so that they've got heat in there. The center section is getting close. In the western area, they've got to get some roof insulation on there, and then they'll be able to close that in for heat as well. The mechanical building is framed and rough siding on there. They put felt rooftop on it last, guess it was Monday. They continue to work on the areas of the baseball for the bleacher area, for the concrete that goes under the bleachers, and then the areas off to the side as well. In the last couple of weeks, finished the warning track behind home plate, so they continue to make progress on that project as well. You know, baseball season's not that far away.
Any questions at all for Dennis, council? Okay, then I think we'll just go ahead and move forward and jump right into public hearings. We're going to start with some of these that are just more or less a little bit of housekeeping on the part of the city. So first of all, if I could, I'd like to open the public hearing to amend section 27-183 of the official city code to add watchman dwellings to the list of conditional uses allowed in C3. I will open this hearing.
Mayor and Council, bring before you tonight the public hearing and consideration of adding the watchman and caretaker language to the service commercial, the C3 zoning as a conditional use. This initial interest was a request made by Divots in regards to having someone on site at the Devent Center building. Situations as such probably don't come very often here, but they felt that the need for having someone on site for security purposes and theft was is something they're wanting. The second part of that was a housekeeping amendment, as you were stated already, which related to the language of the watchman and caretaker, just to provide conformity throughout all sections of that code. Planning Commission recommended these approvals with a 9-0 vote.
Thanks, Trent. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this or may have questions about this? If not, then we'll have the Planning Commission report.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 4th, 2012 for an amendment to the official city code, section 27-183, conditional uses district C3 by adding one single-family residential dwelling unit for watchman or caretaker of facility operating as a permitted use in this district. This district was made as a conditional use in certain situations, specifically the event center, where the desire for a caretaker was made due to increased theft. Current code does not allow a watchman or caretaker as a conditional use in C3 Service Commercial District. An additional housekeeping amendment related to this language is to provide conformity in the watchman or caretaker language by changing the wording in section 27203, conditional uses district I2, to read one single-family dwelling unit for watchman or caretaker of facility operating as a permitted use in this district, which replaces the prior language of single-family residential unit for watchman or caretaker of industrial plant. This amended correction provides conformity to the official city code and is a housekeeping issue. The Planning Commission recommends approval on a 9-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the hearing and ask for consideration of ordinance 5192.
Your Honor, I would move approval of ordinance number 5192.
I'll second that.
We have a motion with a second. Look for discussion. Hearing none then. A short title, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 27-183 of the official city code to add watchman dwellings to the list of conditional uses allowed in zoning district C3, to amend Section 27203 to provide consistent language with other sections of code allowing watchman dwellings as conditional uses, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
With that, I would ask that you please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5192 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, hearing no opposition, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5192 on second and third.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to suspend and pass on second and third. Any needed discussion? If not, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5192 carries on second and third.
Okay, and next is a public hearing to amend section 27-32 of the city code to clarify the appointment of Board of Adjustment members. I would open this hearing and look for Trent. You want to give us a little update on this as well?
Mayor and Council, once again, bring before you tonight another housekeeping and conformity addition to 27-32. This is in regards to who appoints a Board of Adjustment members. This amendment added in the language was by the mayor with approval of the council, which wasn't in there prior, and Planning Commission voted their approval 9-0.
Okay, thanks, Trent. Again, public hearing. Anyone else that wants to speak to this? If not, where are we? We need to, Planning Commission as well?
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 4th, 2012 for an amendment to the official city code due to an omission in section 2732, Board of Adjustment membership and term. Current city code language does not state who appoints the board members for their 3-year term. This redefines the language found in section 2732A, stating each is to be appointed for a term of 3 years by the mayor with approval of the council, and removal by cause by the mayor as appointing authority upon written charges and after public hearings. The amended correction provides conformity to the official city code and is a housekeeping change. The Planning Commission recommends approval on a 9-0 vote.
With that, I will close the hearing and ask for consideration of ordinance number 5193.
Your Honor, I would introduce ordinance number 5193 on first reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? If not, do we have a short title?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 2732 of the official city code to clarify the appointment of Board of Adjustment members, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, and if you will please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5193 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, as this appears to be a housekeeping measure more than anything else, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass on second and third.
Second?
A motion with a second to suspend and pass on second and third reading. Again, if no further discussion needed, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5193 carries on second and third.
Okay, and next we'll move on to a public hearing to amend Section 19.3 of the Fayetteville City Code to delete references to Department of Planning and Community Development and instead empower Fire Division and zoning officials to oversee administration and implementation. Again, I will open this hearing, and are we looking to you again, Trent? You've been busy.
Mayor, Council, once again, another housekeeping amendment in 19-3. Just redefines an error in the city code that references the Department of Planning and Community Development. This department, as stated here, has not been in existence or been utilized for 15 to 20 years underneath that name. This amendment would delete those references and place the Fire Division and its zoning official shall be empowered to oversee these provisions. It also deletes references made to the 1983 Community Plan and replaces it with our most current edition of our comprehensive plans dated 2001 and 2006. It also deletes several other sections of where references are made to the planning and community development.
Okay. Anyone that wants to speak? Again, this is a public hearing, or may have questions on what Trent has provided us with. If not, then I will close. Well, we'll have a planning commission report again on this, I assume.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 4th, 2012 to consider the amendments as discussed. They voted on the issues at 9-0 vote.
Okay. With that, I will close the hearing and ask for consideration of ordinance number 5194.
Your Honor, I would move approval of ordinance 5194 on first reading.
Second.
A motion with a second for approval of 5194. Any further discussion? If not, short title.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to amend Section 19.3 of the Official City Code, delete references to a Department of Planning and Community Development, and to instead empower the Fire Division and its zoning official to oversee the administration and implementation of the provisions of Chapter 19, to amend Section 19.5 to reference the current comprehensive plan, to amend Sections 1919, 1920, and 1922 to reference the zoning official rather than the Planning and Community Development Department, to provide when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5194 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass this on second and third, since it looks like it's been since the early 90s that we did this.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third reading. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5194 carries on second and third.
Okay. Next, we have a public hearing to amend the City of Norfolk's comprehensive plan at Michigan Avenue, 25th Street, and Paswack Avenue from commercial to high density. And as well, I would like to open along with that the public hearing at the request of SWAD, a Nebraska limited liability company, for a zoning change from I-1 light industrial to R3 multiple family at Michigan Avenue, 25th, and Paswack Avenue. I will open the hearing, and we will look to some discussion here, Trent, from your part first.
Mayor and Council, tonight in public hearing consideration from SWAD seeking approval of change to the comp plan from commercial to high density and a zoning change from I-1 to R3. This request was made to build apartments similar to what can be found in Grand Island. A similar request was made in 2007 and was denied at that time. Planning Commission recommended denial of the comp plan amendment on 6-2 vote, and they also recommended a denial of the zoning change on 7-1.
Okay. Thanks, Trent. It's a public hearing, and we're going to look for those of interest to come forward. State your name, if you will, please, and your case.
I'll start to be brief. My name is Dick Johnson, Johnson Engineering, and we're representing SWAD in this proposed zoning change. The property is a little less than 7.5 acres, I believe. It's located south of Michigan Avenue between Paswalk and either 23rd or 24th Street. I don't remember. Several years ago, SWAD platted a little stub street in 150 feet south of Michigan. The property, the utilities that we would need are there and within reach. Mr. Meadowan is part owner of SWAD, and he also happens to own a paving company, so I think we'd get the street paved if need be. There'd be some dirt work, but essentially the infrastructure is all there, could be put in relatively easily. As far as access, what we would envision would probably be some sort of a complex that either exits onto 23rd Street or onto Michigan Avenue towards the east end of the property, trying to stay away from 25th Street where the majority of the traffic is. With that, I guess I'll answer any questions or else turn it over to somebody else that wants to talk more than I do.
Thanks, Dick.
Hey, thank you. Dick, I just have one question right here. The plan essentially is the same as was introduced in 2007.
Well, that's a tough question, Dale. I don't know that PEDCOR is, they may or may not come back depending on the zoning. I think it's more of an issue of SWAT has decided the land isn't moving zone industrial and they want to try something else. I think if the zoning had changed, they would try to sell it to PEDCOR, obviously, but at this point in time, there hasn't been any layout done. When we were at the Planning Commission, we talked a lot about the 2007 request, but PEDCOR hasn't invested anything in this at this point in time. Hope that answers your question.
Any other questions for Dick?
On a similar line, Mr. Johnson, the current zoning underneath this parcel of property is I-1, correct?
I-1 light industrial.
And right to the south where would be the line would break at is also I-1 currently?
Yes.
Okay.
There is some R3 across the street to the west of Paswalk Avenue. Probably an acre and a half, I don't remember exactly.
Any other questions for Mr. Johnson?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Dick. Anyone else that wants to come forward?
Good evening. Jason Dole, counsel for SWAD LLC. We want to be up front right away that we do not represent the developers. PEDCOR specifically, who tried this in 2007, put a lot of time and effort into it in 2007 in terms of doing a site-specific plan, a lot of research with the area. We do not represent PEDCOR. We just represent the landowner, which is SWAD LLC. Thanks for your time tonight. We are here requesting a zoning change to R3. I've handed you a packet of information. It contains 19 exhibits in there. We're not going to go through all of those, but I'll just identify exhibits 1 through 5 are related specifically to the developer, PEDCOR. Some background information, an introductory letter, which is exhibit 1. This would be a 64 unit. If PEDCOR came and did the development like they wanted to in 2007, It would be a 64-unit complex equipped with a swimming pool, a clubhouse, modern facilities, security fence around the outside lined with trees. There's color photos in there as well. They have similar projects in Kearney, Grand Island, Omaha, and Lincoln. I want to be clear at this point in time, in 2011, now 2012, that PEDCor did not come to SWAD this time around. SWAD sought out PEDCor for a few reasons. One, nothing's happening on that side of town, and SWAD would like to move this property, and PEDCor is an interested buyer and developer. And also the recent feasibility study talking about housing needs and additional housing units. Exhibit 6 is a zoning grid. We'll touch on that in a second. Exhibit 7 is the downtown housing feasibility study. I know you're all familiar with that. We'll direct your attention specifically to page 21, which is the summary. The 6th bullet point down references that to reach a population of 25,800 people, by 2020 the city will need to add 873 new housing units. Downtown should be able to capture 15% of that, which I believe is about 137. I don't have that number right in front of me. It's in your packet. But this, of course, would be an additional 64 units if this development was built. Exhibits 8, 9, and 10 are just informational from Grand Island and Kearney back in 2007 when those were requested. Exhibits 11 through 13 are traffic counts from Paswauk in Michigan, from Riverside, south of Alaska Avenue, and First and Benjamin, respectively. Exhibit 14 deals with distances to nearby facilities compared to the area we're asking to have rezoned. Exhibit 15 is simply an aerial view with the site outlined in red to give you an idea, in case you're not familiar with where it's located in terms of Norfolk. Exhibit 16 is the site-specific plan. This was done in 2007. It's not meant to mislead you. This is not recent, although we don't believe that the numbers would be that different if it was done today. This is from 2007 when PEDCor came, and this was a necessary part of their process back then to get it done. I've included this because prior to going to the Planning Commission, we were asked if a site-specific plan had been done. We told them not recently, not this time around, but we did want to include it for informational purposes from when it was done in 2007. And it gives you an overall idea and some specific ideas too as to what the experts found when looking at this property back in 2007. Exhibit 17, simply a sign outside Norfolk Beverage directing their trucks to Omaha Avenue. There's a lot of discussion in the Planning Commission and from before about traffic and concern with traffic flow. And I think if you look at the traffic counts I provided to you, you'll see that the traffic counts are very low in this particular area. Exhibit 18 is the current zoning matrix. We'll touch on that in a second. And Exhibit 19 is a decibel reading from near affiliated Vayance and also the subject property. This was recent, and there was some concern mentioned before about how noisy it might be for this development area if it was rezoned residential. It seems to me we always hear, or oftentimes hear, about economic development in this town and in this area, and we believe this is an opportunity to finally support some economic development. We're hearing complaints or concerns from the industry in that area. I think everyone believes it's a great idea if this, specifically if this apartment complex came to town or any development would come over there. But it seems to be more of an idea of don't build it here. It's a good idea, just don't build it in this part of town. The question we have for the council members, you folks, is what do you want Norfolk to look like in 5 years or next year or 50 years down the road? We think currently that industry in this area is starting to focus on the northeast part of town, towards the Victory Road and Benjamin Avenue area, with the recent development of a new pump station, a 20-inch water line going in over there. There's talk of a bypass from Highway 35 to Highway 81 to connect that. It seems to me industry is starting to go out to the northeast, or at least people would like it to, whereas on the western part of town where this development would be, or the rezoning is, there hasn't been anything for a long time. It's been fairly stagnant. And that's a concern. If you look specifically at Exhibit 6 and also at Exhibit 18, I'd like to direct your attention to a few things. First of all, Exhibit 6, this is not the current zoning map or grid, because as you'll see there, I'll hold it up for you, but you can see R3 on the top. This is accurate. There is currently an R3 zoning. This is right behind Walmart. And then across the street, across Paswalk, is another R3. This is our area. This is what we're requesting to be rezoned R3, currently I-1. Below that, you see 3 plats or 3 tracks that say C3. That's not currently C3, that's I-1 as well. But that was an idea, that was an idea that SWAD came up with back in 2007 to create more of a buffer between what would be their R3 that we're asking for and the I-1s behind it. Now you can see there are C3s down on the bottom. That is accurate, but the only difference here is this larger R3 that we're asking to have rezoned, and then the surrounding 3 tracks just below that to the south to be C3. That's the only difference on this grid. If you look at Exhibit 18, this is your current zoning matrix. It's not the full-scale version. I've downsized it, but I've highlighted several things. If you look on the second page, you'll see, well, and throughout the document, the highlighted areas, the one column, column P, is I-1, and you'll see that from the front page. Starting with column K at C1 and moving down L through P, C1, C2, C2A, C3, BP, and I-1. But currently in this area, specifically in the I-1 zoning area, you could have a number of things developed out there right now without being here, without a hearing. For example, arenas and field houses you'll see on there. Bowling could be on there. Churches, synagogues, and temples in the C3 area. Daycare centers. You could build a daycare center out there in either the C3 or the current I-1 zoning that you have right now. The reason I point these out to you is because some of the concerns that are mentioned are kids, and I could give you demographic studies from PEDCOR that from Kearney and Grand Island area, they average about 37 children in their apartment rentals. But you could currently build a daycare center out there the way the city has it zoned right now, according to this matrix. You could have a fairgrounds, you could have an exhibition hall, gymnasiums or athletic clubs, hotels, obviously. You could have an ice skating rink, facilities that attract children, facilities that have parking lots, facilities that presumably would have snow piles and would have to endure some noise. Miniature golf would be allowed there, museums, parks. You could build a park there right now the way it's zoned. So according to this grid, play lots, play fields or athletic fields under a conditional permit under C3. So the purpose of this is to illustrate what the current zoning is right now out there and what is actually available to build on should a daycare, for example, want to come out there. Many of the concerns we've been hearing, as I mentioned, is the children that would be out there, the lots, the proximity to trucks coming in and out through that area. We think this is a unique opportunity for Norfolk, of course, and I don't think anyone disputes that with a potential apartment complex coming in, but we are asking for this specific area to be rezoned residential to R3. There would be an opportunity for the potential developer to build what they believe would be an $8 million project, and they tell us they utilize local vendors and local contractors. It's in the heart of retail and light industry right in that area on the western side of town. The comprehensive plan done from 2001 encourages this. The downtown feasibility study calls for additional housing. We're a little surprised at the resistance we've received regarding this rezoning request, especially with a current R3 right across the street. At some point in time, presumably someone thought it was a good idea to put some R3 zoning in that area. This would be directly across the street from that. We're a little disappointed in the outcome of the Planning Commission. We gave them the same material you have, minus the zoning matrix and the decibel reading. We've recently added those. There was a lot of discussion, both pro and con, during that discussion, during that meeting, and very little discussion amongst the 9 members when it came time for the vote. I thought there would be more discussion, possibly even tabling it and reviewing more of the information. Be that as it may, I was a little disappointed when most of the conversation from the commission members focused on how this whole plan would be financed, regarding PEDCOR using NYFA to finance this particular facility. And we were a little disconcerted regarding that, because it's more about, we think, one, let's rezone it. If PEDCOR wants to come in and bring this project, wonderful. If someone else wants to build residential on there, that's great. We just think it's a wonderful opportunity to help rezone that part of town that's been stagnant for a long time, and to give Norfolk an opportunity to grow further out that way, and to mix and to match and to facilitate this feasibility study and the comprehensive plan and the desires of the comprehensive plan. It's not about, like I said, it's not about NYFA. I know this developer does conventional buildings as well. It's not about competition to other apartment owners. We're not trying to say, look, whatever. We're not picking on other apartment owners. Certainly we aren't, since we don't represent PEDCOR. The upside would be it might force some apartment owners to upgrade, or to certainly keep current. I mean, this would be a state-of-the-art facility, brand new, built brand new in that area. More importantly, it's about growing Norfolk. It's about progress, and it's about economic development for this community. I want to close with looking at the city code. Presumably it's the goal of zoning, we believe, to get the highest and best use of a piece of property. Section 27.2 of the Norfolk City Code states, the best use shall mean the recommended use or uses of land contained in an adopted comprehensive plan. Such uses represent the best use of public facilities and promote the health, safety, and general welfare. It goes on to state that the highest use shall mean an appraisal or a real estate market concept that identifies the use of a specific tract of land that is most likely to produce the greatest net return on their investment. So it follows that it's obviously up to the City Council to weigh the evidence and determine the highest and best use for this particular parcel. Starting with best use. If I read the future land use map of the comprehensive plan correctly, the recommendation for the land owned by SWAD currently is commercial. The requested R3 zoning does not conform to the future land use element of the comprehensive plan. However, neither does the current zoning of I-1. In the past, the comprehensive plan has been amended to fit a requested zoning, as has been requested in this instance. It's obvious that the public facilities are in place, as you heard Mr. Johnson tell you, and they're in place to serve the proposed zoning. The promotion of health, safety, and the general welfare is more subjective and is what the opposition has focused on when this topic comes up. It's up to the City Council now to determine if their arguments are valid. Next, let's look at the highest use. This definition discusses the market concept and use that would provide the greatest return to SWAD LLC. In my opinion, industrial or commercial property typically would sell for more than the residential property would and result in a higher return for SWAD. However, the land has sat vacant for the entire time that SWAD has owned it. Paul can correct me, but I believe that's close to about 10 years. As a matter of fact, the only real estate shown, or the only real interest shown in that area has been from PEDCOR back in 2007 when this came before you at that point in time. I would submit that this is as good an appraisal of the real estate market concept as you could have certainly for this area of town and this particular tract of land. It also makes it incumbent on SWA to reconsider the highest use. Can they achieve a better return on residential, which is a chance to be developed, or on industrial commercial, which sits vacant and has sat vacant for a number of years? And that's why we're here today, requesting the zoning change. We do ask that you consider this when you're determining or making your determination. Thank you.
Jason, does anyone have questions for Jason while he's before you here? Okay, thank you. All right, public hearing. Is there anyone else that wants to come forward and speak in favor of?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paul Mettleman. I don't think I'll do any better than he did, but I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on a couple things. The decibel diagram that I put together was, I did it this morning, and I put that together this morning. And I went out to Affiliated Foods to set my baseline. It's not a scientific study by any means. I went out to Affiliated Foods. I sat 30 foot away from their reefer trucks that sit on the north side of their facility. I sat 30 foot to the north of those at their loading dock, and that first graph shows that those decibel levels that this particular unit was measuring were at around the 65 to 70 decibel level, which is what the Thermo King reefers, I think they're regulated to, their decibel levels cannot be over 65. So it appears that they were pretty in line with what I was measuring them with, at around 65, 70 there. So then I went to the Vance, the corner of 25th and Omaha Avenue. And obviously this is to measure the noise that everybody's talking about. And I sat there at the 25th and Omaha Avenue. The decibel levels there were from, it appears to be maybe 35, 40 on up through touching maybe 60. And that happened to be at a time when the steam was being released from their roof. Then the third one was, I went 100 foot south of Michigan Avenue, which would probably be about in the middle of this complex, or where the potential R3 complex would be. And I just set the unit out there, and it obviously you can see what it reads from 30 to 50, I would say, in that range. So then if you go to the next sheet there, the comparative examples of noise levels, 50-60 is a conversation in a restaurant is 60. Office, background music, air conditioning unit at 100 feet is 60 decibels. Passenger car at 65 miles an hour is 70. A freeway at 50 feet from the pavement edge would be what a car would sound like. Living room music, vacuum cleaners, etc. But I think if you look at those, they're all, the left side is the decibel level, and the bottom is the minutes that I said that it recorded. So I think everything out there in this area appears to be well in line or under what would be acceptable levels. Just to make a point, 40 is the level that you would hear in a library. Bird calls, lowest limit of urban ambient sound. 50, which a lot of these were at 50, were quiet suburbs, conversation at home, large electrical transformer at 100 feet. So the noise, I guess, I don't think is a big issue down there. They're all good neighbors. They're quiet. I'm sure it's loud inside the facilities, but outside you just don't hear the. I hope or encourage, if you haven't, everyone to go down there and just sit at Michigan Avenue and listen to see what it does sound like for yourself. It's repeated over and over again that this is the middle of an industrial area. Well, in my opinion, it is not. It's on the edge. And if you look to the north, you stand there and look where we're going to put the apartments, you look to the north, this is our main retail and our shopping hub, major employment areas from Faith Regional Hospital on down to Affiliated Foods. All of those businesses inclusive there are probably more people are employed in that 1 mile there than anywhere else in town on a mile, if you were to compare that. Norfolk Beverage obviously is to the south of us, within 320 feet is where our line is, the property line would be. The people that put the matrix together, the land use, does not consider Norfolk Beverage to be an inherently dangerous business. They are able to locate in the light industrial area where they chose to locate. They're also able to locate in the BP zoning districts, the C3 zoning districts, C2 zoning districts, and the C2A zoning districts, which are all commercial downtown areas or spread out through the town, wherever they wanted to be. Pretty much in any commercial zoning they could locate. And along with that, those C3 type zonings or C2s, the traffic and the people are just, there's more of them in those areas. So the people that put this together, I don't think consider that, they're 10 or 12 delivery trucks that leave there a day to be that concerned about it. And obviously with the uses that Jason mentioned in there, they all have snow piles, and if we start regulating snow piles, I think I don't know how to do that. But, everybody has snow piles. It's Nebraska, so. I touched on the decibel levels there. The people crossing the street is always a concern, or has been brought up several times. I ask you to look at it, wherever anybody lives, you're going to have to cross a major highway or a major street to get to a school, to the new sporting facility. You're going to have to cross Benjamin, you're going to have to cross First Street, you're going to have to cross Omaha Avenue, Highways 81, Highways 275 if you're riding a bike. You're not going to be able to go anywhere in Norfolk without crossing a major intersection, major traffic route through Norfolk or around Norfolk. So I don't know how to address the concern there. Obviously, everyone's concerned with safety, doesn't want anybody to get hurt, but it's the speeds at all of those intersections, I think, range from the area of 35 to 45 miles an hour. Also, I mentioned at our last meeting that the Cowboy Trail, as the city is, as we understand, is trying to funnel people down through this area, down 25th Street to the Cowboy Trail. The facility here being on the other side of the highway would be an advantage. If you're going to the park, you'd be able to ride down the 25th Street, connect up to the Cowboy Trail and under the highway to the park, and then on to the softball fields and etc. Just talk here a little bit about industrial properties. There's currently listed on the Elkhorn Valley Economic Developments page, City of Norfolk's page as a link, MPPD's page. There's over 800 acres listed as industrial property right now. And with the installation of the new bypass, which is going in as we speak, there's thousands of acres that'll be on that corridor that would be ready and available for industrial development. So the inventory that Norfolk has or is going to have with the installation of the new bypass is just, it's excessive, I think. And it's one reason our area, I don't think, is developing, because people are looking at those other quadrants in town and not down in here for industrial type uses. I do feel it is more of an R3, and the comp plan calls for that, to locate multifamily, R3 zonings in your high employment areas, and that's exactly what we think we are. If you turn around and not look to the south, I guess, you look up there and you have Menards, you have Hy-Vee, you have Walmart, Shopko, the hospital, just a good mix of industry or businesses. And the comprehensive plan calls for mixed zoning, and that's, if you don't mix your zoning up a little bit, that's why we're ending up with these large pieces of industrial or commercial property that isn't developable, because that's all we let into there. So the comp plan even calls for mixed uses. And to me, that mixed use would be R3, C3, industrial, and into your heavy industrials. And I think that's what we're doing, or trying to attempt to do. But with those large areas and acres set aside for strictly that, they become stagnant, which is obvious, I think, because of what's going on. I think that was pretty much all of my little notes there, so I would maybe like to reserve the right to maybe get up again and rebut something if need be.
Does anybody or any of the council have any questions for Paul as he stands before you now?
I have a couple questions for him anyway. More of time frame elements first to start out, Paul. You're the managing partner of SWAB from how it's presented, I believe.
I am?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Just clarification there. And so was SWAB the one that purchased this property originally back in the early 2000s? Or
Right.
Okay. And at the time then that it was purchased, what was the zoning on it at that time?
Light industrial.
Okay. And it's always been light industrial, I take it?
No, it was ag before that.
I meant since SWAB owned it.
I believe it was zoned as a whole when the Norfolk Beverage moved out there, that sale was, the whole area was zoned that way.
Okay, that's what I was...
Because of that.
Well, not necessarily because of that, but, I'm pretty sure, being the attentive and astute citizen and developer that you are, that you were present at the different public hearings that that were held during the introduction of the 2001 comprehensive plan.
I read about it.
I think you attended some,
I
because I think I
might.
remembered you being there, actually.
I might.
I was
Yeah, I
being a
don't
little
remember.
facetious. But, and you
It was
referenced...
before we purchased the property, I think.
Yeah, but you were aware of it when you purchased the property, I'm assuming
Oh,
that way.
obviously, yeah, right.
So, and having referenced that too, I think Trent has a little copy of the comp plan in 11 by 17 form and stuff like that, and I've got a copy here also, and I look at it, and with the different delineation areas that are there, I don't see any of them that designate residential development in that area. And then in your referencing and discussion, you talked about mixed uses, and there are actually two sections on the comprehensive plan that show mixed uses. And as I look through that, I don't see any of those areas laid out for being south of 275 also. The mixed use, when they talk high-density residential mixed use and/or commercial mixed use, all of those elements as laid out on the comprehensive plan appear to be north of the 275 corridor. I'm pretty sure you probably were aware of that then too.
Well, I think if you go out to the west there, they're showing areas that encompass residential areas on the south side of the highway. And I think the comprehensive plan obviously is a guide for city councils and planning commissions. I think I heard the comprehensive plan change twice in here tonight. It changes every time.
But it's also a guide, and it's a guide.
Correct, yeah, right.
Okay, and you mentioned residential south of of that area, and I'm looking at it here now, and no, it doesn't. It talks about a mixed use when you get out near the 47th Street area, and that's considerably north. It appears to be actually north of the Michigan Avenue, if that corridor threaded on through. So it doesn't really go down to the south there, where it really is more specific that it was commercial development and/or industrial. And I think if you read in the documentation that RDG put together, they talked about developing commercial office spaces and along with commercial and along with industrial in that area. They don't specifically talk about residential until you get out into the 47th Street area. So,
well, I mean, the way I read, if you go into your comprehensive plan, and then I don't want to debate it with you here, but it says to place R3 multi-use or multifamily dwellings in your high employment areas. It doesn't identify a north-south side of the highway, or
it does on the
map, but it doesn't in the description in the inside of the book there. There are several areas where it spots to place your multifamily in your high employment areas, and I feel that's what we're trying to do is
well, that was just my questions to you, if you were aware of what was on there. And not in 2001 necessarily. I wasn't paying any attention to that area, I guess, when we didn't own it then. But that's all I had.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Don Wisniewski. I'm the current president of the Norfolk Area Home Builders Association. The association locally here is made up just shy of 100 local businesses and such around the area, and we've taken a position to support this project. We do understand that there is a company that is willing to spend an $8 million or up to $8 million project on this area if the zoning is changed. And we were told that they would use a lot of the local contractors, builders, suppliers, and so on and so forth, which is obviously very attractive to a lot of our association members. In the past, as recent as 2005, we've seen up to or more than 100 residential starts here in Norfolk. And this last year, we were extremely pleased when it went from the single digits into the teens. And my point on that is there isn't a lot of stuff happening in Norfolk. So when something like this is brought up, we are obviously going to be in support of a project like this. It simply means a lot of jobs for our association members, and we need projects like this. We do understand that there has been a company that spent a considerable amount of money doing a site-specific study on this piece of property, and I'm not going to debate it with you either, Jim. Our comprehensive plans for calls for this type of use in this type of area, not this area. And that the housing study that was done not too long ago, like Jason mentioned, that a need for over 800 housing projects is going to be needed in our area by the year 2020 if we're going to keep the growth like we are. And the Home Builders Association is here to build those type of projects. Now, my company, Wisniewski Installations, sends out 5 crews every day, and we are fortunate because we are extremely busy. We've only done about 8 projects here in Norfolk in the last year, in 2011. 2 of those projects were just 2 weeks ago, and about 8 or so of the other projects were for one contractor here in town. All of our other work has been in Wayne, Columbus, West Point, Grand Island. And my point on that is there's a lot of work always being done elsewhere, not here locally. We need the work here locally. I have heard a lot of the pros and the cons on this issue, as I've been trying to keep abreast of it all, and I believe the pros definitely outweigh the cons tenfold. So we support the project, and we just simply ask you folks to help make the project happen, because the work is definitely needed. So if there's no questions, I'm going to sit down. It's nice and short and sweet, wasn't it? So
Thank you, Mr. Wisniewski.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Anyone else that wants to come forward and speak in favor of? Anyone in opposite? If Don?
Can we come up afterwards, after the opposition, and speak? Do we have to speak now?
Well, I know where you're coming from, Don. I'd appreciate it if you'd come forward and speak with us now. Certainly, we can address some of the issues that...
I need a rubber stamp. I've been here so many times. My name is Don Kellogg. I really don't know sometimes if coming here helps, doesn't help, but it does give you the opportunity to express your opinion. Right here in this room, and right here, and in this room, is what the city of Norfolk is either go forward or go backwards. Every time there's a meeting, you people have that large responsibility to make sure that somebody goes away happy. City of Norfolk right now, we're having some problems. I built a home here 5 years ago, and in my neighborhood, there were 19 homes being built within 2 or 3 blocks. In the last 5 years, there's been about 4 homes in our area. So something is not being done that should be done. Jim, I'm going to ask you a question. The information that you had, what page in the book were you getting that from the Norfolk Planning book? Turn to page 59, if you would, please. I think it's 59.
Yes.
The southwest part of Norfolk.
There?
Yeah, you're there. 600 acres of land. 350 of it is kind of set aside for industrial, commercial. 300 of it set aside for residential. I didn't know the boundaries that you were referring to about mixed construction.
The mixed use shows up actually on the map itself. Mr. Kellogg, it would be the second page after 54, the fold out on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that does reference the southwest area going out as far as 47th Street. And that's where quite a bit of that,
Okay.
that acreage is at. So it's not this area.
It's not this area?
Not this area.
There's 600 acres in that 49th back to what?
There's the reference that they're talking about there, if you read it correctly, they're talking about 600 acres in southwest Norfolk.
Right, that's what
340 of it, he specifically addressed as being residential, but if you look on the comprehensive plan, it also addresses it and shows it considerably further west than we are.
Okay.
And
I guess I assumed that line went out towards the airport, the east line and the west line went indefinitely. No.
You got to look at the map. You'll see
Okay.
it.
I just went by the paragraph there that said that they were trying to
I mean, that's the thing that comes with taking things in context, so.
Okay, thank you. But that's what I see that we should do is several times, well, I've been to all these meetings, and the only one that I have ever heard anybody say, this project is going to cause this, we're going to hurt this facility, we're going to hurt this corporation, we're going to cause this. These people have accepted this, and they would even accept this and bring the project in with these things happen. As far as the children are concerned, if you don't have children, you don't have growth. And you need the children to have growth. And I think you have to go back and look at how many children have been injured or accidentally hurt in the years past here in Norfolk. And this, it's just like our Mr. Memlin said about your athletic facility, the big ball and the big swimming pool and the big baseball field and everything, right on one of the busiest streets in Norfolk, right on First Street. And how are those children going to get to those facilities? They're going to probably have to have mother or dad drive them, and that causes traffic. And so when you take and you put a facility like this right in amongst your commercial property, these people can walk to their jobs, walk to their restaurants, and walk to their factories, and you don't have the traffic that you would have if you have one here and one here. You have them where they're together. I kind of look at this situation like the fisherman. He takes his pole and he goes out to the lake and he puts a bait on his hook and he puts a bobber on his line and he throws it in the water. And when the bobber starts going like that, he says, oh, that's just something, that's just a little fish. I'm going to wait till the big ones come around. And when the big one comes around, he fell asleep. And the big one takes his bait and his hook and his pole and he's gone. So the guy goes home with an empty bag. We don't need to go home with an empty bag anymore. We need something, and we need it bad. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Thank you. Sorry. All right. Who next would like to come forward and speak in favor? In favor? Please sign in for us. State your name, if you will.
Greg Lambrecht, property owner out in that area. I guess for financial reasons, I'd like to see the growth in that area. But also, I lived in the house for 3 years across the street from Budweiser. I don't ever remember the trucks from Budweiser, Volcraft, or Goodyear waking me up. And presently, I rent the property out. There's a grandmother, mother, and 3 children living there. I've never heard any complaints from any of the industry about the children doing something they shouldn't. And also from the renters, I haven't heard any complaints about the industry annoying them. Questions?
Any questions for Greg at all?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wants to come forward and speak in favor of? All right. Anyone with questions or in opposition to? I think you've learned the drill. State your name, if you will, for us, sir, when you sign in there. And
Got it.
okay, thank you.
My name is Doyle Hopper, and I'm here with Nucor Volcraft and Nucor Coal Finish. And as we were at the last meeting, basically I'll cover the same points. And just to start out and go on record, we're not here in opposition to the project. I know Paul and I have talked at length about it. We don't oppose the project. We don't oppose a development. What we oppose is the location and the rezoning. Just a few things on our behalf, and see, I was told I had 8 minutes, so I've never talked 8 minutes, but I'm going to go 8 minutes today. Concerns. It was brought up with safety. Safety is a huge concern of ours. You know, we run two of the safest organizations in the country in the steel and steel product side. We're a member of a safe city now, of the city which, you know, we partnered with to be, I believe, the only one in the state of Nebraska that's received that merit of a safe city. We don't want to jeopardize that with the kids. I mean, in this location with the close proximity, all it takes is, you know, and I don't know how many kids it could be, 30, 40, whatever we said in Grand Island, but these children are that close of proximity to our industrial site, walking across, under our fences, through our fences. Truck traffic, you know, we do have over 100 trucks a day, up to 100 trucks a day just delivering or taking product out of our plant. That's not to say the trucks that come in and bring us materials. Noise, and I know it was talked about with noise. I don't know the decibel levels, but there is a consistent stream of traffic. Our plants, as everyone knows, it's been a rough few years, but as we ramp up in the 24/7 operations in our facilities, there is noise at night. There's trucks at night. There's a lot of things that go on in our facility at night. Complaints we have in the past from neighbors close to, this was before my time, but close to our plant, we have had complaints from neighbors on noise, on smell, and on dust. Even though the noise, the smell, and the dust, it's not an impact on the environment, it's truly a nuisance to someone in that area. And as we have an apartment complex there with this many people living and the kids, guaranteed there's going to come complaints. I've worked for Nucor for many years, been in many locations where we were in close proximity, not by choice, to housing areas, and it was a routine rash of complaints on our company. Where does it end? We look at this, again, not as an opposition to a project, not as an opposition to growth of our community, not as opposition to any economic development, but simply rezoning. And where does it end? If this is industrial, and we are industrial, then rezoning, we have to be very, very careful. We ask you to take that into consideration as you think about this. This would be a major impact on the future and on where do we go from here. Really for us, and I'm not saying this taking it light at all, but common sense says it really doesn't make sense to rezone this area in the industrial location it's in with our industry, where we're at, some of the other neighbors that we have there on the industrial side. Common sense really comes into play and says, is this really the right thing to do? Properties, you know, I'll comment here in a minute, but are there other properties this could be located on? Well, that's not for me to answer. I'm not in the real estate business, but we would just ask that we don't open Pandora's box on rezoning in an industrial site. And just a few more points and I'm done because I told you I would take very short, but just a few comments and a few points on some of the things that I wanted to rebuttal. Future industry, it was said earlier that future industry may be moving northeast, but we're here to stay. We've been here for a long time on that side of town. We've been in beside those fences and on that road for many, many years. We go way back with the city. We go way back with the community. We're not moving northeast. We're staying. Our future growth at our plant is not taking place northeast. Any future growth for us would take place right there where we're at. There are PEDCOR properties located in many of the cities that were mentioned, and I've looked at them. They're very, very nice. However, the proximity to industry is not what this would be. Daycares, it was brought up earlier by council that daycares could locate in here. Well, daycares are not inhabited dwellings 24/7. They are fairly organized, secure, monitored, and maintained. And again, they're not there 24/7, very, very supervised, if it's a daycare. And housing starts. You know, it was commented that that housing starts are low and we need something. Well, housing starts are not related to rezoning. They're related to an economy, a vibrant economy. They're related to economic development, and they're related to supporting industries in those areas. That's basically all I have. Any questions or comments?
Doyle, I just had one question. How many people does Cold Finish and Volcraft employ?
Just on that site between Cold Finish and Volcraft, we're right at 400.
Any other questions for Doyle?
How many dollars of product goes through there in a year's time?
We are a publicly traded company, so that is public information, but due to any misrepresentation or anything being taken out of context, I'll just say it's several hundred million.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't think so. Oh, maybe I just need it closer.
Mayor, City Council, good evening. My name is Mitch Geary. I am the Environmental Safety and Health Manager for Vance Technologies, formerly known as Goodyear. For 32 years, Vance Technologies, Goodyear, has operated in a relatively safe and secure urban industrial area. We direct our traffic down Paswalk Avenue to relieve some congestion and competition with the new core. Although ours is not as large of a volume as they do, we don't want to tie up that intersection any longer. We do operate in a 24/7 operation at Vance Technologies. 12-hour shifts. Our steam cure vessels release at various times of the day and the night. I will point out that if decibel reading taken today in the morning time, our cure vessels were down for preventive maintenance until 12:30 this afternoon. Any steam releasing from our plant was either from our Banbury mix operation or from our heat. So our cure vessels, and I'm not saying that would be deafening, but would a barking dog in the middle of the day with a shift worker be a nuisance? Would it wake him up? I think our cure release vessels, if they're released at the same time, would probably do the same thing. Be more of a nuisance than a high decibel deafening volume. But I'll go on to that. Our fences are a challenge to any youth. Just 2 incidents within the last 12 months. I've caught 2 young men building a fort back in our trees. When asked how they got over there, they climbed our fence. Got a hold of their parents, made sure it wouldn't happen again. It didn't happen again. Had a young man who was taking pictures of some wildlife, and he showed me a spot in our fence where he went underneath in one of our low spots. We got him out, and it never happened again. But a fence around our area is a challenge to any young unsupervised youth. We've had 2 sister plants. I did a little research. We had 2 sister plants, one in Wisconsin and one down in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they spent countless hours answering nuisance complaints, noise complaints, traffic complaints, safety and security from the residents around there. Our Lincoln plant has residents right across the street. Our Wisconsin plant, our Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, is in the general area of less than a block away. So they spent countless hours. Our legal counsel is up there quite often addressing complaints from industrial and residents. I do throw out a rhetorical question there, would you consider rezoning residential into an industrial and let industry build in residential? If not, why? And then why would we do industrial into residential? Let us operate our facilities, let us grow our facilities in the security and the comfort of an industrial zone. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Deb Allen with Norfolk Beverage Company. And we would also like to state that we're not against this project. We're just opposed to the project or the proposed project being in the proposed location. As most of you are aware, Norfolk Beverage has been part of this community and has invested in the city for the last 60 years. We've always supported the city and been the best neighbor to the city, and the best employer to our employees that we know how to be. Prior to 2000, 2000, Norfolk Beverage was located at 206 East Northwestern Avenue. And there, the whole front of our building was right across the street from a residential area. And it was very common for kids to come onto our concrete and bring their bikes, their skateboards, their toys to play. And every time we see them, we would go outside immediately and encourage them to leave, tell them to leave, and explain to them why it was so dangerous for them to be playing in this area. We know that they turned it into a playground in the evenings after hours, because when we came the next morning, we would have to pick up broken toys, pieces of skateboards, sometimes a bicycle or a big wheel, and so we knew that they were there. When the time came for us to move out of our warehouse, we had land purchased east of Norfolk outside of the limits. And we were looking forward to doing that, knowing that it would be a much safer environment without the children being there. And at that time, the city administrator and a councilman came to us 3 times and asked us, please, to stay within the city limits and preferably go on Omaha Avenue. We listened to them. We knew that if we did that, we would have to purchase property. It would cost us more money in city sales tax to build the building. It would cost us more money every year to continue to operate. But we thought about it and we answered, sure, we'll do it, because we believed it was the right thing to do. And in return, the only thing we asked for was to be able to give us a place that we can operate our business, a safe place. We hear that there's a industry close to the apartments in Grand Island. Norfolk Beverage's lot line is 300 foot to the proposed apartment building. Grand Island's in that area, the New Holland plant is 4 times as far away. 4 times. And please keep in mind that Ballcraft is directly across the street from us. We hear a lot about traffic counts. Well, I would like you to think about what type of traffic there is in the different parts of the city. And in our part, it's truck traffic. It's tractor trailers. A tractor trailer cannot stop in the time that a car stops. A tractor trailer does not have the visibility that a car has. And a tractor trailer has many more blind spots, obviously, when going forward and when in reverse. We have 10 tractor trailers of our own that leave our plant daily. Early in the morning, some come back during the day. They all come back sometime during the afternoon, early evening, depending on the season. We have many small vehicles. I think that we own 15 small vehicles, vans, cars, pickups, and then our employees' vehicles that are off our property and back on. We have an average of 20 commercial carriers that come onto our property per week. And these carriers are contracted through the brewery. They're different people every time. We have no idea what trucking company. We have no idea the drivers. They're always different. And we have no control over that. They come straight to us. They don't make another stop at another location. They come from the breweries, which is either 9 or 11-hour drive. So they come onto our property and they look for a place to park, to get to the loading dock. If we're closed, if it's the weekend, they look for a place to park for the weekend. We have 4 loading docks. There's a 40-degree angle on the concrete back to our building to go down to be up against our loading dock doors. That is a fabulous place to ride a bike, to ride a trike, to rollerblade, to drive your remote control cars. In fact, we have a lot of concrete. It surrounds 3 sides of our building. It's a wide open place that's fun for kids, I would imagine. Mr. Dole mentioned that there's, and put in your packet, a picture of our sign that directs trucks to the Omaha Avenue, and I'm not sure what point he was trying to make there, but I just want to make clear that because these drivers do not know our area, they've never been to Norfolk before, most of the time they call ahead, and we always always, 100% of the time, direct them on 275 to go to the intersection of 275 and Paswalk where there is a stoplight, and direct them around. That sign is there on the west side of our building so that the trucks don't pull into the first driveway and drive around our building through our parking lot, but rather they go to the corner, go down Omaha Avenue, and then into that gate on that south side. That's why the sign is there. Noise. There was some talk about noise. These commercial carriers that come in, they come in after hours many times. They're there on weekends. And those trucks run the whole time they're parked because the driver either wants the air conditioning or he wants the heat. There are reefer trailers there that have, occasionally, that have kegs of beer on them, and they have to be kept at a certain temperature, and so those reefers do run. We have 10 cooler units along the north side of our building that run off and on continuously 24/7, and that's to maintain the set point temperature in our environmentally controlled, climate-controlled warehouse. It's mandatory for the brewery. We cannot turn those off. Those are all within 300 foot of where it's being proposed that people sleep. And Mr. Lambrick said he had never heard the noise, but there again, please keep in mind, it's on the east side of our building, and there's a 65,000 square foot building between that noise and Mr. Lambrick's house, which is then again across the street. So I don't know if that has an impact, but I would guess that it does. We hear about children walking to school, and at the Planning Commission we were told that children don't walk to school anymore. I'd like to argue that point. Children most certainly do walk to school every day, especially children whose parents work or parent. They cannot get off of school or off of work to take their kids to school or pick them up every single day both ways. It doesn't work that way, and we all know that. Norfolk Public Schools calls off school in the wintertime when it's so cold, and it's not for the comfort of the kids riding in vehicles, it's for the safety of the children that walk. And please also keep in mind, Westside School is 0.8 of a mile away from this proposed apartment complex. That's close enough to walk, and that's if you stay on the sidewalk. If you get through the commercial and go cut across the field, it's much closer than that. So there will be children walking. So if a parent would instruct their child how to cross that street, they may think to have their child walk to Tires Inc., go across 5 lanes of 275 bypass, and go to the sidewalk. That'd be fine, but once you get past Big Red, the sidewalk ends, and it puts the child either walking or on a bicycle on the edge of the street to jaywalk right at the exact point that cars are turning in and out of Hy-Vee Gas, Menards, 2 banks. I don't think there's any parent that would want that. So instead, they're going to ask their child to go to Tires Inc., cross 5 lanes of traffic over to Cornhusker Auto. That's all. Cars turning off and onto the 275 bypass. Once they get there, they then have to wait for the light, obviously, and either walk or ride their bike across 6 lanes of traffic, because there's 4 lanes going south and then 2 lanes going north. So there's 6 lanes of traffic for a grade school child to walk across. As a parent, I certainly would not want my child to walk across that highway or that intersection twice. I don't think anybody would. So I don't understand why, if we wouldn't do it, why we would propose putting someone else's child in that situation. I don't get that. Again, I'd just like to finish that we're not against this project. We just don't think this is the place for it. Thank you.
Any questions for Deb at all? Okay. Anyone else that wants to come forward and speak? Can't hear me?
Diane Flynn, also with Norfolk Beverage Company. just to come out of the technical world a little bit and back into some simple terms, I went online and looked up in Wikipedia, what's the meaning of residential? What's a residential area? And the general definition given there was a residential area is a land use in which housing predominates as opposed to industrial or commercial areas. Trent, would you be able to bring up for us that picture of the plan with the zoning on it? Okay. So the area that we're talking about is in here. Right picture. This is a little bit of out of date. Norfolk Beverage is here. This is both light industrial, and as we move across Omaha Avenue here, you get into heavier industrial I-3. 275 runs up there. To my way of thinking, for industries and businesses and commerce, this is kind of a section here, and it's a section that allows us to be divided from some other. So there's 275 running up and down, and here's Paswalk, and then this is the larger area that we're talking about, and this is the smaller area where we're looking at rezoning. Okay, then if we could switch to showing the actual aerial photo it gives us. Oh, terrific. Okay. So here we get the footprint filled in and see some of our industry here. Can we go up a little further north? So we come, thank you. So we come to 275, and here we see our commerce. And then over here, we see where housing predominates. And let's bring a little more of the housing in so we can just see if that's where it is. But it's not down here. This is not an area in which housing predominates. We're talking about converting something from what it currently is into something else. And the reason that we're talking about doing that, as best I can ascertain from what was turned in here, was because we want to have people able to walk to work. Well, I don't know about the other companies, and they may wish to speak to that themselves, but we haven't had any requests from our employees that they wish there was something closer to work so they could walk there. When you change from what is to something that's pretty different, you need to have some solid reasons for it. What is an industrial and a commercial area that has the texture of a business park, which may indeed be appealing to other businesses to come. I wish we were not in a national sluggish period of our economy. I wish businesses were popping up all over. But we also want to be positioned so that when they can do that again, we have opportunities for doing that. And we also don't want to make life harder for our existing businesses that want to be good citizens and that want to provide as much safety as we can and that want to have an area where we're not likely to disturb other people. And when you set up a residential complex, a multi-unit residential complex in our area, and we're gone in the evening, except perhaps for some trucks that have to come in and drop something off and unload that we're not, that are bringing product to us that are not our own, we're not in a capacity to supervise. When you change just, here we are, when you change right here just north of us so that this area has that complex, the likelihood is sooner or later we're going to have problems with some young people who are home alone perhaps in the evening and the late afternoon looking to entertain themselves, and they're going to trespass elsewhere, and we're not there at that hour to supervise them. If you put other kinds of uses in the area, if you have a playing field that sports teams are coming to, there are going to be coaches there supervising it. There's not going to be anybody watching out for those folks. And if that becomes our job too, that makes our life a little less focused on what we're here for. So we'd like to see the character of the business park kept. We'd like to see the plan the city had kept, which said capitalize on what we've got and build in this industrial corridor that we have going, and keep it that way. We think south of 275 makes sense as a business park. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions for her at all? Okay, anyone else that wants to come forward and speak?
I already signed in. Burns Wingman with Fallcraft Cold Finish. There's not a lot I can say that hasn't been said, but I would like to go on and just back up a few things. We talked about noise, we talked about lights, we talked about odor. And my area that I work in is the yard and transportation, so trucks, noise, odor, complaints, I'm the guy, at least the first person. But, and we do get some of those now. You're going to always have that with a business. But you start adding more residential close, and you're just going to have that much more of it. We talk about the decibels, and I don't argue the numbers because I don't know. But I will say a north wind today sure helped the numbers. South wind in the summer is going to reverse that a lot, along with odor. Not, a little dust, that you've got pretty well under control. So that's really all I can add to it, other than we do talk about the trucks. Again, some traffic by Budweiser, some traffic by Walmart, a lot of traffic on 275, a lot. So, questions, anyone? Comments?
Council, any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vern. Anyone else that wants to come forward and speak? Okay. Good. Okay.
Pass those down for me. I'm Ivan Peterson. I'm a property owner here in town. We own apartments. We have about 95 units. What I have in front of you here is a NYFA study from 2011. And I just want to thumb through a little bit with you. I have some areas highlighted, and just real briefly on the first page, talk about the summary, and it talks from 2000 to 2009, the population decreased 1.4%, and in that time, 886 housing units were permitted. In 2009, the average value of single-family construction was 160. Between 2008 and 2009, the unemployment rate increased to 4.3%. In the fall of 2010 rental survey, the vacancy rate was over 5.5%. If we move to the second page that talks about the labor force a little bit, we're not going to go through that one. We're going to go to page 3. If you look at the bottom of that graph, I have a couple of circles around multifamily units built within the last 10 years. And I want to talk about both of them. One is the 32 units. Those are built out to Amberwood. And when they built those, they built all one bedrooms. And the reasoning why they built all one bedrooms at that time is because that's what the market determined was needed.